No, they.
Well, and well, and we so those of you who weren't at first service, I got a call. Actually, so Leon is in because his mother is dying or has died. She was dying this week. I don't know if she's passed yet or not. He left immediately after church to drive to Lubbock because of that. So Rick was all set this up. And then I got a text from Rick at about 8 o'clock Friday night saying that he had tested positive for COVID. Yeah. Oh gosh. So at 8:30 Friday night, I called Stephen Montoya, who, thanks be to God, was available and willing to come in. So I let him in yesterday so he could practice on the organ, and he is in there right now, and we are blessed. So it was an exciting 24 hours. Okay. Just and I think so, John, just to advance this, like last week, you'll have to use the return or the space or whatever, because the mouse is disconnected.
Right, we use the pad.
Okay.
The right side, the left side.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Karen. Everybody knows Karen?
No, we don't.
Good.
See me, they don't ever see me, but I'm there almost every Sunday. Who's gonna do the advance?
Oh,
Cause.
no, you can't use it.
That's not.
Advance it for you.
Okay.
I
I mean, I can be here, I can be there, so.
Well, you'll show up.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, somebody has to,
See that little thing up in the right-hand corner that says right?
won't this just need a down arrow?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
That one, Walter did.
Somebody has something.
Walter was our experiment.
Real disadvantage being this far away. So we're definitely not going to, I'm not going to cover everything that's on that slide because I just don't see it.
Oh, well, then the heck with
Well, we can
Just-
shout it out to you. Okay.
it. We only got Roy on here anyway, so.
So I was gonna edit it, and then I remembered that it's already on this flash drive, and I couldn't edit it because you never wouldn't allow me to. Anyway, you want to. So, but I published under Karin Westland. I've been publishing. I have over 200 papers, almost all of them about pain, because I was trained in Galveston, Texas, by a person who was trained by Nobel laureate Sir John Eccles. They were the one of the first people who realized that not only we talked about how the pain from your extremities comes up to the spinal cord. Okay, you can go advance, and it shows a picture of that, John.
Hang on,
Or not, don't know.
hang on.
What sensation is like. No, then it goes up. It's like we can do this with our.
Matthew. Huh? I can't move the mouse. The mouse has been detracted. It's not hooked up to the mouse. Oh, yeah.
Itself on the picture. All right.
Ah,
So yeah, that's what nerves look like. On the left is all the nerve endings that are in the different parts of your body under the skin. And then what happens on the right side in the big square with diabetes, the sugar, as I said, causes the nerves to retract, and they're not there. Just a few are there.
oh,
And so without that, you have to have constant feedback right? Even if we don't feel it, right? We're accustomed to not feeling the nerves under our skin, under our clothes. The sensation goes away, but it's still there and it's giving feedback all the time to your brain, which knows don't pay attention to flows, or flows every day. But if the nerves die back, they start sending pain signals to the brain. And if you have diabetes, you don't know what I'm talking about. And it can cause the ulcers, the ulcerations and whatnot, that can end up destroying a limb if it's not cared for. Okay, next slide. Talking about that. So whenever you touch a warm stove, you know, immediately we're built-in reflexes, we pull back. The signal comes to the spinal cord, it goes to your brain, and you think, why did I do that? Don't do that. We all learn when we're quite young, but that's how it works. Enough about that unless you want more input. Okay, so what happens with pain? It's not advancing. Can you advance one more? This is boring. Okay, so this is how we test either the diabetics to see if they have sensation on their toes. This is how I test an animal. I was telling them I make chronic models for pain so that we can understand more about pain. And we all know that there are not very good medications, ones we have trouble right now. But the one on the right, it shows how the nerve endings within the nervous system, they're constantly releasing chemicals onto the next nerve, which brings it through the circuitry. And the pain circuitry is separate from other circuitries like vibration. But it travels with thermal, cold and temperature and pain all travel together up to the brain. All right, enough of that. But this is the path that it does take. It does cross from the right leg, goes up to the left brain. Okay, that's enough. The problem with pain is that if you have something that started causing pain, like sciatica, diabetes, it can, or say a car wreck, you have some immediate nerve injury. Well, that will usually go back to baseline so that it still feels the same. You still feel warm and cold. The problem with chronic pain is that these circuits that are involved all up in the brain, especially the really old ones, can go into a vicious cycle. And they still say, I remember the pain, I remember the pain, I remember the pain, and we have not learned how to stop it. That is the problem right now. It's not necessarily, unless you have diabetes, you've lost the diabetes. The problem is in the brain. It starts in the spinal cord, but that pretty much goes back to normal. So that's what I've been focused on for the last 20 years probably.
So if you had chronic pain, would you tell the patient, let's make sure you had diabetes?
Oh, more pain, pain upon pain upon pain.
Okay, just
Did you say the brain is interpreting this?
Yes.
Is this where you have any control over thinking, or
We're going to get to that. Yes, we have some control. Some people have more control than others. Training yourself to have more control. That's what I want to get to. Okay, let's move on. This is the boring science part. So yeah, but they're all ready for action, and that's actually the cortex of the neurons. Right, next slide. And they are all connected, interconnected in different ways in this pain system, and especially in the part that's related to fear. That's the part that is really kicked off and going, churning and churning. It's related to our fear circuitry. When it gets into that, it's trouble. All right, so let's move on. I just threw that one because I thought it was cute. Okay, go on to the next one. Let's talk about what medications we do have. We do know that this is a dried poppy seed pod. Those are poppy seeds. We do know that for the last thousands of years, beginning with the Chinese, that the most effective thing to stop this is opiates. been used for thousands and thousands of years. It is absolutely the best thing for surgery and the few days after surgery. The problem is, of course, that they give you 2 weeks, right? And sometimes it takes that long to heal. But the problem came in when people, the last, I don't know, 40, 50 years since we've had good pharmaceutics, that they ask for more. And then it only takes a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to become addicted.
Hmm.
That's the problem. Because it does take away pain. And with the exception of a very, it's not even that new, but it's being used in surgery now. There's one called buprenorphine. And I've used that in my animal models. And the animal models do not work. It gets rid of any post-surgical pain I might get. And that's what they're using now, because they have a better control over it. Using it at UNM, I know some of the anesthesiology department. But they only use it during the surgery. It's just as addictive as all the rest. And the pharmaceutical companies have spent the last 50 years bringing out opiate drug after opiate drug after opiate drug after long-lasting opiate drug. And that's all we have, with few exceptions. There are some anti-anxiety drugs, which then help with this limbic circuit, where it spins and spins and spins. But they lose effectiveness. Carbamazepine, duloxetine, they lose effectiveness. So, and then let's just go ahead and go to the good news, which most of you have already heard.
They lose effectiveness because your system understands this and then.
It is plastic.
Yeah.
It's the neuroplasticity that causes this vicious cycle to start. And it also learns how to work against the drugs. So, yeah, and even the opiates, after in 2 or 3 weeks in a mouse, it actually starts causing pain. Opiates can cause pain because the system shifts. And so that's what we've been working on the last 20 years, is try to understand how to make it not shift, how to make it unwind. And I've actually found some things, some patents that are making it work. We don't know if they're going to be addicted. They're just antibodies, so we'll see. But there are things in study section that I have seen that are good products that are coming, but how long it'll take to go through FDA, 5 to 10 years. Fortunately. So we have all these different types of pain. And as I was saying before Matthew got here, I'm trying to make models in mice so that we can test this at the stage like we have with people who cannot get rid of their pain. So I've made this neuropathic nerve injury. I've injured that nerve in a mouse. And we've injured the sciatic nerve. Everybody in my field knows that model. I use it most of the time. But all of these different situations can cause these central chronic pains, diabetes, chemotherapy, cancer, of course. There's vascular diseases, including the it's in the back, the sickle cell. Those are really painful. Nutritional deficiencies, you should all be taking vitamins. Viral infections, shingles. None of us were able to have the chickenpox vaccine, so we can have shingles at any time. Should get the Shingrix. And then people have genetics that allow them to have more pain than others. And of course, we might all have surgery or injury, and the anesthesiologists try their best to keep these from happening. And with the buprenorphine, we have some hope that it will.
Is there any information on, say, some people are more prone or whatever?
Yes.
You know anything about that, or is that just sort
No,
of
it's just starting.
a thing that?
There probably are people who know a lot that I do.
Okay.
But after we take these models out and we have animals that make the pain go away, we have some that still have pain, and we compare them to normal animals. We're doing the genetics on those to try to find blood biomarkers. And we're also doing that with human blood. Because the pain physicians, everybody that walks in that clinic has pain. right? And they're on opiates and they're addicted. So we have that group of population to study as compared to the rest of us.
How is an animal transmit to you that it's in pain?
How do we test it?
Yeah,
Well, you know, the big toe, the poke, we have these little fibers, they're like long toothbrush bristles, and they're graded strengths. And we find the animal's threshold. And when they have pain model, they're more sensitive. And of the set that we have with little mice, because the face is the most sensitive part, the very finest fiber, which I can't feel on my finger, they will move their head away if they have them on. And it's not painful, but it sets a threshold for us. And then we have a lot of other models that are, a lot of other tests. One of them is real easy, is if in a box we put 15 marbles. If they have the pain model, they might bury one. But a normal animal will sit there and just bury them all, maybe leave one or two in the time frame. So we know that they're fine. So something as simple as that, a mouse can be tested. Or if they stay in the dark side of the box instead of the light side. Normal ones will eventually they'll start going all around, and the ones with pain will just poke out a little bit and stay on the dark side like we do when we're sick. We stay in our room like quietly. So yeah, whoever said mice can't talk is true. They talk to our staff very well.
you just can't say ouch. Yeah,
Somebody that's not familiar to that, they will communicate to us through these little tests. Okay, let's go on to see what. Okay, so these are the different types of pain. About 80% of us will at some point have back pain, and that's the most prevalent. But of the ones that stay, the worst is this jaw pain that I've worked the model out for. And there's the breakdown of the percentages of what people have according to the literature. Next slide. So there's 22.7 million, at least, last count. And as we were talking about the diabetes, it feels to these people like they're walking on tax. Let's go on. And chemotherapy causes pain in almost everybody, and half the people that will stay. And so that's one of the models I'm working on right now. So I can't see that wrong, but I guess this is probably to tell me about the vicious cycle and how it can involve more and more systems. All right, next slide. This is the real cost is about $560 billion US dollars, because the medical costs, the loss of work, productivity, the cost of disability programs, and just the drugs alone are $6.3 billion. Next slide. So it's important that we stop this. And I just finally recognized this about 10 years ago and started giving us separate physiology experiments. So progress is being made.
On the cost of the drugs, is that drugs being sold legally, or is this like people who are also?
That was from legal drugs. Yes. Yeah, we'll get to the local ones. Okay, 10% adults have chronic pain. 20%, so I can't say. 3 million new cases of chronic pain every year. And of those, 8% are high impact. That means that it doesn't go away. It hurts all the time. You can't make it go away no matter what. So it's a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. And of course, it comes with aging. But it leads to long-term disability. There are currently not very many effective treatments, and it cannot be cured. But I've cured it in mice and repaired it. And from the genes, it looks like the nerve is repaired. So the NIH and DOD and VA are giving me lots and lots of money for the first one. But the treatments are coming, other people, like me, other scientists, we finally understand enough about this. Of course, there's much, much more to understand. The effective treatments, we talked about that, I don't know if all of you were here, about opiates, of course, very effective for 3 weeks, then it starts causing pain. We have gabapentin, that is the best discovery so far. But now we know it's addictive and it loses efficacy over time. When I first started doing models, did an arthritis model, it's not particularly effective for that kind of pain. It's effective for nerve injury pain, like diabetes. I tested that was in 1980.
You say that opiates can cause pain?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually cause, or they just don't take it away?
Either one will cause pain. You have to be tapered off. So, but you want to do that in the first few weeks after surgery because the neuroplasticity that causes this vicious cycle will change, and the opiate activation of that system, it activates the addiction pathway circuits, and it starts causing pain in mice. And people with opiates, they still have a lot of pain. And so it's an assumption that it's like the mouse.
You develop
Yes, it is definitely a habit.
a weird cycle in your brain that
That's right.
just keeps going.
So, right, next slide. Let's talk about the big problem here in New Mexico. We were at the very top of the list for opiate addiction deaths. And then when this was recognized, we went up 3 steps. But guess what? We're back down there again. We were next to last with overdose deaths, primarily the fentanyl problem. So, and another thing I guess we should talk about here is the fact that the mice don't come out of their little dark cubicle because they have anxiety and depression. I can model that in mouse. And people with chronic pain, that is accompanying the bad thing is their anxiety and depression, the reduced quality of life, becoming disabled, the opiate dependency. And so that's why New Mexico there is in dark brown, dark red, whatever it is. Next slide.
So Arizona. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
United States, where coming
Colorado.
flooding across the border
Wow.
with the fence, suitcases. So, which one?
There's the one you said.
Fentanyl is the strongest opiate on the market right now. And we don't have any non-addictive replacements now that we know gabapentin is habit forming, but that's much, much better than the opiates. People could stay on that reasonably well. All right, next slide. Well, that's kind of a duplicate.
That is. Next step is, okay.
Be a surprise to you, but people that have done studies in 2 or 3 major sites in the country, and people with low back pain, chronic low back pain, in the MRIs, they're showing loss of the gray areas of the cortex, similar to Alzheimer's, but not nearly that severe. But the good news is that when they were treated then in the clinic, within 6 months, it is restored. So stop the pain, you can stop that cycle. And that we do not know if it's related to Alzheimer's. I think it is. But there's no one studying that.
So that because they feel better and they get more, are stimulated more, or is this the brain recreating more neurons?
But that is they're restoring neurons, although there is some evidence that neurons can be born and go to the hippocampal memory So it's unclear why this is happening, but it's a good thing. Okay, so let's move on. Those are MRIs of the brain. That must be the next. Let's find out. Well, we talked about opiates, of course. 1,050 years, the best medicine of all. Oh, wow. There's no way I can be done. This just shows the increase of substance use over time. Used to be amphetamines, but now it's the opiates. Cannabis is the one that's exploding right now. Okay. So I will talk about the cannabis now, I believe, on the next slide.
Are those increases to keep pain going, or is it
Recreational.
cannabis is recreational these days, you know? As we can all see driving down any street in town.
Any place for Monsanto souls in 5 blocks or. And this.
Yeah, shops. But this is the increase of the deaths shown by state. Mexico is always there and intensified the last year, which I can't read. But this graph was done by the from the CDC.
What's the first year?
I mean, I'm going to what?
To
52,000.
So it's free cannabis.
That's pre-cannabis. This
Right.
is still opiates.
Right.
Okay, so move on to
Free
the
legal
next one.
Right.
Yeah. Well, medicinal. Go ahead, John, and move forward.
When did Oxy become,
Oxy.
when did it change its classification? But I understand the market is with a lot of this increase.
To the Purdue Pharma.
Yeah, what did that, we know about that?
I was attending the pain meetings. There was, I came into the poster area, presentation area. Purdue Pharma was right outside.
Yeah.
Trying to get you to
Sales
the
literature.
sales literature,
But they reclassified it as Schedule 1.
but that's very recent in the last
That's
2
very
years.
recent.
Yes. No, it's not on that term. That's really recent.
Oh.
That's been on the market since the 90s, early 2000s. So, those meetings. All right, so first up, this is cannabis now. Switching to cannabis, the first approvals were medicinal. And now this slide is out of date. Now it's recreational in our state and Colorado. And it's still illegal in those gray states. All right, let's move on. Because I want to get to the part about, we already talked about keep up your exercise and your stretching. Okay, so is cannabis the problem? Is the solution or the problem? Did it backwards? In my mind, it's a problem, but then I'm just a scientist. All right, move on. Because the same changes in the circuitry happen with cannabis in young people. There's literature that says that below 25. In older ones, adults and whatnot, it's not so much a problem if it helps. It doesn't work well for arthritis, that, except in mice. But the problem is what it does to your motivation, your cognitive ability to make decisions with long-term use. And I'd explain when people are driving through houses, businesses. Next slide, to what we can do about this. Hemp. Hemp was first started here at the sales of hemp here in New Mexico because there's two components that work for pain, the THC and the cannabidiol CBD receptor activation. And the CBD is not so psychotic process. THC causes that, but it's not as good for pain either. So that's the next slide. So as I already mentioned twice now, the future of pain, it's coming along. We're getting there. We'll have some things available within the next, maybe even the next 2 years, in trials in Europe. All right, next slide. So, but going back to the anxiety part, and what all of us face if we're going into a surgery, know that there'll be some pain involved, but hopefully the anesthesia will take care of all that and it won't linger. But what you can do, how you go into a surgery, reflects how you're going to come out. If you're terrified, hysterical, you're going to have a lot of pain. All right, that's what the literature shows. So I'm going to talk about some ways that we can manage fear. And this started in my lifetime with college exams. Practicing this a long time. Teach you some tricks if you don't know. Didn't I?
It's your dissertation. Getting in front of your committee.
Only the last week.
So sleep. Y'all know that sleep is important. Get good night's sleep. But how do you do that if you're facing something traumatic or scary? Next slide. We do have our own internal arsenal for pain. Next slide. And we all know about balance in our life. But what I learned from one of the Chinese scientists when I was in Galveston in the physiology department is how to control the physiological functions that we have. And it just involves sit there before an exam, or sit there before a lecture or whatnot. I didn't have to do this because some of you guys. Breathing, slow, deep breathing. And I used to be able to hold it for like 30, 40 seconds each breath. And I'm out of practice with that, but you should learn how to do that if you have trouble going to sleep. I fall asleep like instant.
What do you say about
That's important. Acupuncture activates certain anti-pain pathways. That's all I know, but I haven't.
relaxation? You know,
Relaxation.
I was convinced by one of the people I worked with to do it, right? It didn't solve any of the problems it was supposed to, but it sure is relaxing. I mean, it is. You just feel like a bag of water.
I call it secret. It might not work instantly.
Right.
But it works for some people because they learn how to turn on this endogenous system. Okay. And you can invoke it yourself. You can lower your blood pressure a whole bunch of points just by doing this slow deep breathing. It's tied into blood pressure, heart rate, and then all the good parts of this. You know, fight or flight versus relax, rest, and be calm. So you want to move to that side. And you can do that by controlling the breathing. You might only be able to go 5, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You start with 5, then you go to 7. Build up. It's very helpful in your lifetime. And that's something we can all do. And what is it doing? It's activating the relaxation part of our autonomic system instead of the fight and flight part. Moves you back into balance. Next slide. What else can we do? Relaxation and a healthy life. We all know about that. It's just a matter of doing it. Next slide. What else? Some people, like me, I go to choir. I come home on Wednesday night from choir practice, very relaxed, in a very good, pleasant place. So just listening. We were always playing in our house classical music since before I was born. My father was an organist, our director in Big Downtown Church, Austin, Texas. And so art and music are way to get into this relaxed state. Next slide. Exercise, we talked about that. Any kind that's good for you. Chair exercises is what my mother does at the Karin High. Next slide. And especially stretching and walking. And yoga. It's probably the next slide is probably yoga, right? Next slide. Yeah, yoga. For chronic pain is one of the best ones.
Huh.
As much as you can do, even if it's just warrior. 30 seconds. It helps. Next slide. Well, we all know about, like, talking about the runner's high. Okay, so what we're trying to get with the relaxation and whatnot is our own endogenous opiates. We have opiate systems. And you know what? I've studied them. They're not addictive. Well, kind of. I mean, if you get to that point, it's
Yeah, have them forever.
any of
But they're
it,
cheap, that's.
they're cheap. They're, oh, they're not that easy. You have to build up to the big ones with breathing, whatnot, yoga. But it's yours and you can own it because they're very powerful and not as addictive unless you're at this level. We're not that level.
Feel like you can just go forever once you
Once you,
get that point.
Yeah.
So,
sorry,
you-
it doesn't. I've never done that, but it's good to do. Used to do ballet. That's what's incredible.
Yoga is.
And even ballroom dancing, I'll do it. All right, next slide. But these endocannabinoids are very powerful, and not only do they make us feel better and feel less anxious, they are actually healing our body.
Huh.
Next slide. We all know that breasting a baby feels good to the baby and to us, and staying connected with people. That is a good way to relax. With grandchildren. What I do. Next slide. This is the same thing. It brings you calmness. It can also, as I said, wound healing. It gives you a very spiritual connection to your relatives and your own life. The next slide.
You got doggies in there.
Golden retriever.
And according to VA studies, they've tried all of these different techniques of self-meditation things. Also have an appointment at the VA. And so I keep up with that literature and I review for them. And what they have found is that prayer is the most healing outlet that we have. So I'm assuming that that is part of the endogenous pain fighting system of our endocannabinoids.
Next slide.
This is one that I cannot read, but this can be an ending prayer.
When our bodies ache, when our hearts break, when our spirit fails, when pain overwhelms, when life is more than we can take, He understands our pain. Out.
So one more was at the last one. Yeah, thank you. Over here, no, not that one, but that's finished.
Back up.
Well, anyway, there was a prayer.
I'll try.
Yes.
In that or is that still?
Right, from fungus, I could, yes, that's what I was talking about.
The documentaries. I don't know, I didn't know that was. Fascinating. Yeah.
But it is like the connections between mushrooms and between aspen trees.
Yes.
They're all interconnected. They say they're one organism.
There's that.
It's not only aspen, it's also local trees too.
Heard that one.
I backed up a little bit.
Yeah. Somebody want to read the prayer since I can't.
So, reading method for this heavy, this walk across. It's not easy to get across Christ. The joy that was set before him, despise the shame, or our share our. So.
That's fine.
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, someone that came out and talked to us about drug use and abuse. And one of the biggest problems was that not just what was happening in that moment, what didn't happen, was that we didn't learning, but increasing. It's been a some kids want to explore this, they feel like follow when they're on there. Necessarily be responsible, and these are traits that are so important. So you know, this is a really problem in society. Are there issues that is driving parents or children to be
She got it.
without must be 7 or 8 shops. So every percent. And to me, also, you know, and I was teaching for entrepreneurs. Can't believe that people think this is good.
Well, I think, we've sort of shifted from alcohol and after post World War II days and Vietnam. But Vietnam was part of the shift toward opiates and marijuana. It's too bad, but it almost seems like the constant human thing. It's been going on for thousands of years, right? It's interesting, though. It does seem like the brain and the nervous system, mostly the brain, is coming to be just a little bit understood these days. I mean, it's been a big question mark, and it still is. There's lots of questions. It does seem like things are coming around where placement or whatever. Makes sense.
But the pathways intersect.
It needs top priority.
What disturbs me the most is it can cause this lack of what makes us different from animals, right? It's our ability to make decisions, good decisions versus bad decisions. afraid that they're destroying their brains. See all the violent things people do when you think that is an examples of what it can do to the brain to destroy our decision making.
Does alcohol have the same issue?
But I'm not sure if the downstream long-term effects of alcohol is to diminish the gray matter.
Mm.
But and there's images in the brain, it's become permanent. I don't know. I think the cannabis is worse and faster, making poor decisions. That's just my personal opinion. I haven't read on that.
Well, I think all these shops, you know, they're gonna start disappearing. It's, you know,
It was on the news the other night.
yeah.
The good thing about that is that, you know, really, everybody's not over. Maybe tomorrow, bad news will get run out of it.
Yeah.
They will forget.
But I imagine that they're all making money to you know, it just seems like.
Some of them certainly can't be making much.
Right.
What did the news story said that there was only like 20% of them had sales worth a darn anyway. Yeah.
I can believe it. I mean, you just see them right next door to each other practically, you know, it's crazy.
I spent some time during the summers in Colorado, which is a small town, and it was interesting for the past few years. You could not buy gas there for 4 or 5 shops.
Well, it just goes to show you about the poor decision making.
Well, you know, even here, I would ask my brother-in-law, this is several years ago, I moved here, I says, how come there's a gasoline station on every corner? You go some places like Montebello and things like that, and I said, well, the consumption of gas is fixed, basically. And
Where was he from?
he was a senior executive by the end.
Yeah, but where did he live?
At that point in, Louisville. No, yeah. But here, it's just weird, to see that. Of course, now you drive around, you see these places are vacant. So,
I think there's another issue, that these is my experience, personally, when I was in Providence, or in big places. There is such a push on emergency response, emergency rooms to medicate you. And they must have asked me 4 or 5 times, and I wasn't. And they asked me over and over in the emergency room, we need to do something. That one, fine, finally, after about 3 hours of waiting, agreed to something. Because I really existed. And I was in terrible pain, but I didn't enough together. And it was such that it was pushed on me. And I must have said 6 or 7 times. And because I was
That's appropriate use of it.
And they showed you the little chart, the happy face and all the way down, right? Because I don't know, I think maybe Purdue had something to do with that, but I was in hospitals most of my career. I was not a medical person, but I saw it happen. And there was a time when those happy faces came up. The push was, do not allow pain to happen. That was sort of what everybody was thinking. At some point, that became the standard. Just don't let them even be one step down from the smiley face, right?
That is because all the things that can happen to your body physiologically, even to the nerve endings, instead of these, it's fine. But after 3 days, no, it's not fine. It's appropriate for acute pain. It's the only thing, the best thing, and it's best to quiet your nervous system.
I have a quick story that goes kind of along with first. I had my tonsils out as an adult, my early forties, and I had never had any opiates in my life before that. So they gave me a hydrocodone pain. My body said, "Oh no way." It came right back out. Got right back. So I said, "Okay, I'll just go carry that on." So I was looking pain. Just couldn't be.
I had a situation where I had some pain because of surgery, and they would ask me, oh, from 1 to 10. Well, I have no idea what 10 is. 10 is like, yeah, well, but yeah, I realized that, but I have no idea what it would feel like. I always said 2.
That's another thing. Once you get that really intense pain, it goes away by itself. It tends to,
As we enter teaserhood.
Yeah, right.
it still works, hurts. You know, that's fine.
That's
My sister, always says that I have a very high tolerance for pain and her, you know. The other thing comes down to, if you do the opioids, you don't have to you don't have to learn to deal with your brain, you know. And,
just a period of.
and it gives you a chance to learn how to deal with it.
I slowly understand what she was saying, that some people are more convenient than others, because I have 2 children. And it's just amazing. Some of them, and then there was, oh, she
Thank you, but the decision.
Ah.
All these groups and all these signatures to give opiates. It's pretty hard for them to give opiates now, so that's a good thing. The only time it's limited is you.
Yeah, right. I'm pretty well. I gave it up. I don't.
No, I didn't.